So what can you tell us about Nightcrawler?
Well, he's about 6'2" and eyes are blue, etc., etc., etc. It's at this point a 6-issue limited series that will premiere in April and picks up, I guess, where his continuity leaves off. He's just come back from what I suppose one could euphemistically call the beyond, brought back to life by forces beyond human control, apparently, and is trying to figure out what comes next. Why am I here? I mean, I came back obviously to save my friends, to deal with his father, Azazel, or whatever the heck his name is, and now he's got to get on with the rest of his life, and this is hopefully the story of his first steps down that road.
Great.
Which involved meeting up with his old girlfriend and dealing with problems in her life and dealing with his new responsibilities as apparently an instructor at the Jean Grey School, and hopefully as he learns about the new life with the X-Men, so will the readers, and both he and they will have a good time.
Do you find that you're learning more about the X-Men as you write this?
I find, as usual, I'm making it up as I go. Much to the annoyance of editors, I suspect.
I'm sure. And your stories, notably Dark Phoenix Saga and Days of Future Past, have influenced blockbusters, future and past. And how do you feel about those stories? Are there any that you would like to see brought to film? Are there any of those stories that you would like to see brought to film that haven't been?
Well, at this point, Dark Phoenix has been done. Wolverine's been done. In a way that God Loves, Man Kills has sort of been done, in that the characters in that series, in that story arc, were all a significant part of X-Men 2. And obviously Days of Future Past is on the verge of release. So to date, I've been extremely fortunate in my material having been translated to the screen. What comes next, we'll have to wait and see.
Are there any stories of yours that you would prefer to be left alone?
Probably not. If one assumes that a quality director and a quality writer and a quality production team come together to take a story and translate it into film, that they'll know what are the good elements in it and what are the less good elements in it, and bingo. I mean, to put it mildly, in the middle of Iron Man 2, which one wouldn't expect to see me with any aspect of it at all, since I don't do Iron Man, Natasha Romanoff walks in and introduces herself as is introduced as this is your new secretary, Natalie Rushman. And I'm sitting in the back of the Ziegfeld, and I suddenly went, what? Because Natalie Rushman is a secret identity of Natasha Romanoff that I created for a 4-issue arc in Marvel Team Up years ago, where she got involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. and yada, yada, yada. So even when you don't think of it as my turf, i.e. the X-Men, I have a sneaky way of popping up.
Making it in there.
I mean, as Rocket Raccoon is one of Bill Mantlow's defining characters in Guardians of the Galaxy, like it or not, Peter Quill is one of mine, because I've done most of the Star-Lord stories. John Byrne and I did them, and then Carmine Infantino and I did them. And so I'll be interested to see if any of that translates through into the movie. So even when you least expect it, suddenly there I am.
It pops up.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not like traditional literary characters. Comic book characters are fairly unique in that once they are created, they can be passed down from different author to different author. And how do you feel about that?
Good and bad. I mean, to a certain extent, it's interesting to see how the modern iterations of Sherlock Holmes are evolving, both in terms of the Sherlock Holmes that's being produced by the BBC versus Elementary over here, where you suddenly notice that, for example, Lucy Liu is brings a whole different aspect and perspective to Watson than you would have expected, but in many respects it's a lot more interesting than the traditional presentation. By the same token, though, you go down and look at literary presentations of Holmes, and there's a whole series of novels, for example, of Holmes who, after he has gotten married to a young lady in the early 20th century, and their adventures going through the First World War, post-war, into the 20s and up towards the 30s. So, on one level, as a reader, it's really cool. Obviously, if I were Arthur Conan Doyle and still alive, I'd be pissed. But you know, it's like you watch other writers play with characters that you created, and that's the name of the game if you're mainstream comics, unfortunately. On the other hand, I have a whole catalog of characters and stories that are mine that I play with, and it's just a matter of finding the right publisher and getting it out to the right audience and hoping it synergizes. So that's the way we go.
Now, speaking of your audience, you're probably best known for your work on X-Men, which are outcasts, and it seems a lot like those characters are stand-ins for a lot of the outcasts who tend to gravitate toward comic books. So do you feel like with all of the influx of comic book culture being cool that the geeks have won, or have the thunder god Jock stolen our thunder?
I suspect the jury will always be out on that one. That one year might be Jock ascendance, one year might be geek ascendance. Clearly this is the year of quasi-geeks inventing a cool website and being bought out for 10 or 11 figure payouts. Who knows what will happen next year? This, from my perspective, it's above my pay grade, so I'm just going to write the best possible story I can and create the best possible characters to be part of it, and hope for the best.
That's all any of us can do, I suppose. Now, your characters are such larger-than-life characters, and they're driven by deep pathos. And do you ever wish that you could just let them retire and be happy?
I could wish it, but it's not going to happen. I tried it with Cyclops; it didn't work. You know, they brought back his dead girlfriend. So, what in a mainstream Marvel sense, what I wish is pretty much irrelevant. It's editorial direction which rules the roost, and the writer's responsibility is to find an appropriate way to execute it in the most popular, marketable manner possible. In terms of my stuff, you play it by ear. What story works, what story doesn't. Is there a natural voice to a character that will take you only so far, or can you keep going back to mine that line of earth forever? But I haven't come to an answer in either direction yet. It's still work in progress.